Tonight, I got a special guest with me. I got somebody who you've been talking about for years, somebody who's a dear friend, one of my favorite people in the whole world.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. And somebody who has been speaking up and speaking out on this question of Palestine, among a million other things. But for the last few months, she's definitely been at the forefront of the conversation, particularly among celebrities on the question of Palestine. And every time I'm live, people are saying, yo, where is Amanda Seales? Can somebody bring Amanda Seales? Can Amanda Seales come through? Talk to Marc. So, or they'd be like, do you know her? And I'm like, yes, I really know her in real life. So
hilarious.
So I'm like, I got to bring Amanda on. What's up?
What's up?
Is that like is one of those days size, or is that one of the world is fucked up size?
I mean, isn't that every day now?
That's
true.
I mean,
it was always fucked up, but I feel like it's I have like a new level of just awareness of the fucked uppery, so I have a different I have like a different capacity that I'm supposed to manage of it, and some days it's just I don't got it.
Word.
Some days I just don't have that capacity. I just don't have it.
I get that wholeheartedly. I mean, since October 7th, you've had like a gajillion Instagram followers for a long time. I remember there was this moment post Caitlyn Jenner.
All of us here have had such unique experiences and just from such different backgrounds that we have to, like, if this is a conversation about having conversations, then we have to be listening to each other and listening to the fact that, like, the reason I am so passionate, and I'm not hostile, I'm passionate. The reason I am so passionate is because I've had such a different experience in this country than you. Because as a Black woman, the government is so much in my life. And it always has been. Like, the government literally said that Black men couldn't even be in the house or else women could not get welfare. And that's a big reason why there's such a chasm between Black women and Black men in this generation. So I think that there's just a lot to understand for, like, why people are talking the way they're talking about different things. I understand why you're talking the way you're talking. Because I know, because
I just don't understand. What am I talking? I just said I believe in this country.
Yes.
And
you can say that in a way that I cannot, because you've had a different experience. Because this country is here for you. This country ain't here for me in the same way, sis. It isn't. And you, as a trans person, have to also identify the fact that this country hasn't been here for trans until, like, maybe 2 o'clock today. So
your Instagram followers, like, skyrocketed.
Literally, like a week.
Yeah, it was like 7 figures. And then, you know, it stayed steady and it grew like everybody's grows when they're in the public eye. But then since October 7th, I've seen another surge. And I'm also seeing your name in conversations that I didn't hear before, especially from Arabs, around brown folk, around Palestinians, all this stuff. You're like at the forefront, particularly among celebrities and especially among Black celebrities on the question of Palestine. Like, how did that happen?
It's not even the forefront. It's just I'm there. Niggas ain't even at. It's not even like I'm standing in front of a bunch of niggas like at the forefront.
You are said nigga.
I'm the front. Like, I'm the 4 front, the 5 front, the 2 front. Like, you know, I'm like, you know, there are folks that are that, you know, there's people like Jesse Williams who have always just been like in the mix of things that he should be in, you know, that require humanity. But it's honestly, it's really been super dope. Because you just kind of get complacency is not the word, but you just kind of become like used to just like this certain set of people that you are speaking to, and it can make you have a limited, like, I feel like it can create a certain level of myopia, right? Like, to like what the world is. And I really am so honestly appreciative of the expansion of folks that are, you know, curious about what I have to say about things, because they also bring their curiosities to my space about other things, right? So it allows me to like learn and expand my knowledge. And Like, I didn't know that all Palestinians were fine. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know. And like, it's just, you know, like,
wow,
all, literally, men, women, everybody, fine.
it's all beautiful, yo.
Everybody, which I always, like, I say this in my stand-up set, like, that would be doubly irritating to me if I were Israel. You know, it's just like how Black folks would show up to protest and to boycott in like a full drip. And it's just like, ugh.
Right. And they fly too.
Yes. Like, even we keep trying to keep y'all down, and you keep just not letting us in like a myriad of ways. And now even biologically, you continue to show us that you are beautiful. But it's been really, it's kind of like even shifting just my like identity. Like, I don't even know how much longer I'll refer to myself as a comedian.
Really? Why?
Yeah. It's something that I do and I can do and that I love doing. And I'm like so honored to be able to be a comic, but it's beginning to feel like it may not be a true representation of like what like my purpose is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, maybe that's just how I feel today.
For sure.
But that's just kind of like a thing that's been kind of circling around my head. It's like, I can be funny because I'm funny, right? Like, I don't think people know that you're a completely ridiculous person.
I think they're starting to on this channel because every once in a while I get ridiculous, but you're right. No, I still keep the very serious facade.
This person right here, is an actual ridiculous person. I mean, I get to be a ridiculous person for a living, but it's interesting. I kind of don't want to be. I would actually like to get to be a little bit more serious more often, I think, because I put pressure on myself to be like, it's time to be funny. And sometimes, and for the most part these days, I'm like, when I'm on stage, it's fine, you know, but
right.
Just in general, it just, thank you. I feel like there's something else to be doing than just trying to find the funny in things. Does that make sense? Does that sound silly?
No, it sounds like what a lot of people struggle with who are in your position. I know Harry Belafonte talked about this, and he told me this, you know, like after.
I knew you were gonna flex. I knew it. I was like, he's gonna flex. He's bringing up this man's name. I was literally like, in what form will the flex come?
Yes.
There will be a flex for him. You know, he actually told me this. He actually texted me this from heaven.
Right.
Go on. So annoying. I knew it.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
Said this. He actually told me this. He actually wrote it on a post. Put it in the mail and sent it to me with a lock of his hair. And I smelled the post-it note, and it was the same cologne that he wore in Island in the Sun, which was actually filmed in the island that you're from, Grenada. And there was grains of sand in the envelope that I still have to this day in an encased, vacuum-safe piece of plastic.
Do you see how I get treated, y'all? Do you see how I get treated up in this joint? I hate you. But anyway,
what did he say?
He said, like, you know, when he made the Banana Boat song or whatever,
compassion,
and he was I mean, there's a point where he was like the most famous, like, not just the most famous Black person in America, but like one of the most, like, he was like the most, like, he was the shit. Right? He was the most famous person in the world. And he started to struggle with it. He started to feel guilty about it. And I think a big part of why he didn't continue to make music down the road after a while wasn't because he didn't have a desire to make music, but because he felt like his purpose was greater. And I always felt like and worried. I always wondered, like, why can't you do both? You know, like, you know, make the music and do this other thing, because if you don't, then that whole other world, like, I don't want I want you and just,
Because if you're a real artist, like it's not just a job.
Okay.
You know, like, I mean, I feel like there's folks that are in the entertainment space that are entertainers. But if you're an artist, like you can't just do it.
Yeah.
And also for what it's worth, like you end up doing so much other shit just to do it. Like, and you're just like, oh my God, like all of this shit is so fucking draining just to do this thing. That is there a version of life where I do this thing and not deal with any of that? Like, what's that look like? Because I'm asking myself that all the time. Like, what does it look like? Because at this point, Marc, I just feel like there's no, I can't. I feel like I'm watching like the downfall of Hollywood. Like that's what I feel like I'm watching. And I feel like I'm seeing the space where I spent so long to get to just kind of, it's like I'm watching a black hole close. Like I'm just like, oh, like I thought once upon a time, shut up. I thought once upon a time.
You just know me well enough to know that in my brain, I'm like, pause, nigga, pause. But I wasn't gonna say anything.
I'm gonna say this for him because I know that he's dying.
Yes, the 12-year-old inside of me was like,
but
when you say Hollywood, what's happening with Hollywood? Because you say the downfall of Hollywood, like
it feels like I'm watching like how the music industry like really, really changed back in like the first, like in the 2000s when Napster and all that shit happened, right? So there's like a business thing happening, but then there's also just like a very, thank you, Omega. There's also just like a very, speaking of Omega, it feels like we're coming to the Omega of an era. You know, and
Mars.
And I'm pretty good with trends. Like that's one of the things I feel like I've always been gifted at. Like, oh, that's happening. This is gonna happen. That's gonna happen next. And I started seeing this shift about 4 years ago. Right. First of all, when George Floyd happened, I was like, listen, get with what you can, because the other side of this is going to be bereft, right? Like they're going to give right now so that they can, whatever they're giving right now, they're going to take back twofold. Like that's what and that's what white people do. So, and then you have all the stuff that's going on or that's been being revealed to America about Israel. And it's like a double whammy because it's not just whiteness, it's Zionism. That's also like, oh, we're going to take it back too. Yeah. And I feel like I'm watching a cultural shift in terms of what's going to happen. Like there's like no black shows.
Yeah, none. I mean, like I was watching, I know rap shit is off the air. I saw, which I enjoyed. There was another show that was like last year that was black that they just pulled off the air too. And it was like stuff that people are watching and enjoying. At least we think they are. And
they had done the new version of the,
Wonder Years.
Wonder Years, yeah. I love that show actually. And you know, I mean, and some people will be like, "What about Abbott Elementary?" I'm like, "Okay, that's one."
Right.
That's one. I mean, I'm on season 4 of Living Single right now. It's still I'm watching it with fresh adult eyes. Like this is my first rewatch ever. And they're on season 4 and it's still up here.
It's elite. It's elite. And that's what I mean. I'm like, is Hollywood declining because of, I mean, this has been the year of disclosures from Cat Williams to the Diddy stuff before the end of the year, all this stuff. Is it just that people are like over Hollywood? Are people like disillusioned with it?
It's a whole bunch of shit at one time, Marc. I think it's that. Like, even just the people who are here right now, like I'm curious in the chat, like how many of you have a different view of your faves post October 7th? How many of you have like reevaluated what it means to have faves since October 7th? Right? Like how many of your faves have shifted from like people who are doing, you know, roles that you like to like people who are doing things that you feel the world needs? Right? And that doesn't necessarily just mean like Montez and, you know, like people in Palestine. I'm saying like, even if it's like people like you, right? Like, and so there's that. There's also just on a fundamental level, these creative spaces are now being run by money men, not by creative minded money men.
Yeah.
And so it's the same way that like Boeing is no longer run by engineers, it's run by money men. And so then the planes fall apart in the air.
Right. Because they don't give a damn about the construction. They care about efficiency, like financial efficiency.
When I saw that Chernobyl happened because motherfuckers said, let's find the cheapest way to make a nuclear reactor, like that.
That's wild.
I'm like, if these niggas wasn't even trying to shell out the coins for a nuclear reactor,
right?
Do you think they're gonna do that for season 3 of Euphoria?
We ain't got a fighting chance. I just wanted Uncoupled to come back. I love that show, and
I love Uncoupled. Yeah, but you know what? It wasn't gonna come back the way that we loved it, but. No, Uncoupled. Which was Uncoupled?
Remember the dude that played Doogie Howser?
It is coming back. It is coming back. My very good friend wrote on the last season.
I'm sorry, you dropped something. Did you said the name you just dropped?
No, I didn't. I just said I just named a person in my life.
That's
position.
true. Flex.
That's not a flex. I'm literally in Hollywood. Like that's not a flex.
That's fair enough.
Now, if I say the director, James Bland, the director of my independently produced political comedy documentary In Amanda We Trust, wrote on the last season, that's a drop. That's like a drop.
And a true one, y'all. Check that shit out. It's fire too. Somebody wrote in Floyd Mayweather, for example, talking about responding to that idea about how your faves. And I don't know why Floyd would be somebody's fave before other than boxing, but like, because there's plenty of reasons to not, to have critiques of Floyd, but Floyd sent bulletproof vests and his private plane over to Israel after October 7th. I know for me, I just started watching the show Big Bang. I didn't see Big Bang when it first came out. So I know I was.
You saw Blossom.
I did. And Blossom, I didn't think much of. I mean, I liked Blossom and that was it, right? Joy Lawrence, Mayim Bialik. Then I watched Big Bang and I was like, yo, she's perfect in the show. She's the perfect partner to Sheldon, blah, 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 blah. I liked her on Jeopardy, when she was the second host. And then I started seeing her posts after October 7th.
An actual terrible person.
Sarah Silverman. I like irreverent comedy. I was rarely offended by her the way other people were. And she and I have even shared like some irreverent jokes together. I was like, you know what? Cool. But then when I watched her and Amy Schumer and all these other people start to post on social media stuff that's disinformation, misinformation, Islamophobic, racist,
loud too, loud,
right,
with a chest.
Yes, like loud with it, and it was like, and trying to like almost make you feel like a victim. Or make you feel like a villain for having a different position on this, for caring about Palestinians, and acting like she was a victim. It just changed the way I saw all of these celebrities. And I try to, me, I try to give grace to people. I assume the best in people, even when they're like trash. I'm too generous sometimes. And so with some of these people, I was like, all right, you don't know any better. Like, I have to assume that shit happened in Israel. Floyd heard about it. He picked up the newspaper, handed it to somebody, they read it to him, and they said, this is the right move to make. And then he went and made it. You know what I mean?
You're an asshole.
What? I'm just, what?
Because I was in my head formulating that joke. I was like, how am I going to get that off? And you did it. Yeah.
Well, like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, how mad can I be? Are people mad at LeBron saying, LeBron is, supporting Israel? I think LeBron just says whatever is popular, whatever you're supposed to say. You know what I mean? I don't think he has any thoughts about this matter at all. You know what I mean? I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, like, it's interesting. I juxtapose that to some of these people who I think are actually terrible.
It off top, like that. You're so right. Like within week 1, there was definitely just a whole lot of like, oh shit, they bombed them. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And then people like us who were like, well,
Right.
they were like, you can't say that. And it's like, no. I don't think y'all, because I remember saying, because I was like, I had said something to the effect of like, in about 2 weeks, y'all gonna feel different about this. I'm right. I was like, I'm right. I know that I'm right now. And y'all are gonna feel different about this. And then you got people being like, and then you saw the people who were like very like, I'm down, like I'm on Israel's side, be just not on any side, like just got real, they just Homer Simpson.
Right, exactly.
But this is a long haul. Like, I think I always tell people when they realize that there's like a whole issue about something, like there's definitely a bunch of people who already knew that and are in the trenches already. So like, you just need to like join the trench.
Right.
And I think, that's what's happening right now when it comes to Palestine. It's like people like you have always been, aware. And then there's those of us who are like, no, you haven't been aware. You've been active. Then those of us who have been like aware. And then there's those who genuinely had no fucking idea.
Right. Yeah. How did you get from aware? How'd you get from not knowing about it to aware? And then how'd you get from aware to like, I'm active?
So I always had a cursory. So for me, Palestine was contextualized as a place in the Middle East where like wild shit was happening. That's how, if I'm being honest, like that's how it had been contextualized for me, right?
Yeah.
Even when I met you and you would mention Palestine, I still didn't have the frame of reference for the issue. Like it was still like, okay, there's a wall. Not really sure why there's a wall. And I never took the next step. I always was so immersed in the whackness of America. Like, I feel like there's American exceptionalism and then there's like just American deception. And there is so much time that can be spent just in trying to figure that shit out that you can really not realize that there's a global issue of things happening, right? So I was one of those people and I was really just very immersed in the Black American problem. And then when the CNN shit happened with you, I was given a bit more context of like, well, why did I do that? But I always knew that there was an overexertion of the anti-Semitism as a accusation, but I never knew what it was actually attributed to. I didn't understand that it was attributed to Zionism.
Got it.
And so because my only frame of reference was to attribute it to Judaism, I was like, well, that seems anti-Semitic to like apply it to that. So like, that can't be it, but I don't know the other ways it can be. So long story short, the Al-Aqsa flood in 2021 was when I went from having a consciousness to an awareness. And I would say an awareness in that I then learned. My sister, so my stepmother is Palestinian, but I'm not close to my brothers and sisters like that.
Right. A lot of people don't know that about you, by the way. They don't know that about you. So that's actually an interesting piece.
Oh, yeah. My stepmother, I mean, like my keffiyeh is from Palestine, like my one that I was wearing. And then someone tried to tell me like, actually, people don't wear the red. And I was like, it's literally says made in Palestine. Leave me alone.
Yes. And people do wear the red. That's not true. People wear red all the time.
You tried to tell me. And I was like, Mark,
the black one is more.
You were like, the black is the thing. No, I remember because I asked you. I was like, people are telling me that the red is not real. And then it's Saudi. And you were like, I mean, yes and no. Like, wear your shit.
Right.
So, but I say all that to say that so people had started, so by 2021, people had started looking to me as somebody who says things. And so folks had started harassing me. I'm going to say harassing because some of y'all were harassing. Like there were people who were like, yo, I would love for you to look into this because, we really need more voices. But there were people who were like threatening me, like, and shaming me, like, how dare you not speak about Palestine? And what I think a lot of people just weren't acknowledging is the fact that there's been so much of a very concerted effective effort by Zionists to make folks feel like they can't talk about Palestine.
Right.
So at the same time that this was happening, I was trying to buy a house, and my realtor saw me learning and saw me putting stuff on these internets like, hey, I'm learning about this. And then he sent me an email and was like, I'd like for us to have a conversation about Palestine. As an American Jew, I think it would be very important for us to have this conversation, and not for there to be, what did he say? Something like it would not be about conflict or whatever. And I was like, can you sell me a goddamn house?
That's it. We got one function in each other's lives. I buy a house, you sell a house. Right.
And so I ended up getting a new realtor. And when I looked on her, Instagram, she was pro-Palestine, but she's Jewish. But she was pro-Palestine.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I was like, okay, let's ride. And so I left the other one. And by the way, I recorded the conversation when I left him, because I was like, he definitely tried to have like an attitude. Then I was like, but since all the sandals are off, let's keep it a buck and say what it is. I 1000% think that you are a Zionist, and that your unwillingness to acknowledge the occupation in Israel makes me wholly joyful that I will not be giving you money to send to Israel to support the occupation. Right. So then after that, I started following Eye on Palestine, and I was following a couple Palestinian influencers who, were educating, and I was sharing. And so I've been since 2021, like people, if they follow me, like they see that I've shared stuff, but then of course, October 7th, I think the biggest thing for a lot of people about October 7th is just that you feel compelled to have to share information for a myriad of reasons, but also because like people definitely keep trying to act like what's happening isn't happening. And that's something I just can't wrap my mind around. Like, we see it. And then I'll find myself in spaces with like people who are just dumb. And I'm like, oh, wow, it worked.
Right. Yeah. Because there are some people are like, I don't want to go near it because I suspect that I would land on the right side of this, and that's not good for business, especially in the industries we're in. They're like, look, I don't know a lot about it, but I don't want to know, because then I'd feel compelled. I'd be responsible. I'd rather stay ignorant.
Better type thing.
Yeah, exactly. There are some people who are on the other side of this issue. Particularly people who have a dog in the race. But I find that when people are educated on this, it's hard to stay in the same place. It's hard to see all this information, look at all the data, look at all the deaths, look at all the politics, look at all the history, and walk away and say that what Israel's doing right now is okay. Even if you see nuance in it, some stuff ain't that nuanced. And that's why I always think about going from aware to active, right? Going from not knowing to knowing, cool, but aware to active was like, okay, I could just post a thing or two, but you didn't just post a thing or two. You're fact checking people, you're challenging people, you're calling people out, you're posting videos, you're doing a lot of stuff that allies are supposed to do. You're showing solidarity. I know you I'll tell you this all the time, even not on political stuff, just out in the world as an artist, as a person, how fearless you are and how I admire your fearlessness. Were you fearless on this, or was there a part of you like, oh shit, this might not work out so good?
There was a part of me because, one, I just was like, I felt like it was very easy for folks to like just put people in positions of being a spokesperson. And like, because I'm like, I guess I was on a show and I'm known, like, it's like, oh, let's make her the spokesperson. But I didn't feel like I was ready informatively, or even just like, honestly, like, I didn't know that I would be able to carry that. Like, I didn't know that I would have like the capability to carry that. Like, I don't even speak Arabic. I mean, but I don't, like, I mean, like, I mean, I feel like it just felt I'm getting a little something.
Let's say that's some solid Arabic right there. I'm impressed. It's growing. It's growing.
I'm just saying, side note, Duolingo is hilarious because the first sentence they teach you is I have a new generous husband. That's the first sentence they teach you.
That is wild and not
I would
surprising.
say I have is
Andi.
what is it?
You can say Andi, or in some dialects you say Ili.
Indi. Yes, it's Indi. Indi زوج جديد كريم.
Jadid Karim or Jadid Renni. Yeah, that's like I said, you that's fire. And I like it for you. Obviously, this is a very serious political struggle, but I also know that you are somebody who likes challenges. And I know the challenge of learning and studying and being able to make the case, because you don't want to just be one of them empty suits. Yeah, you don't want to be able to just have a slogan and nothing to back it up. Yeah.
I don't want to be a pundit, right? Like, I think, both of us have seen, people just kind of put in these positions of punditry, but ultimately they're just like saying whatever someone tells them. And that gets scary for me, because I'm like, well, if I don't know enough about something to be able to actually stand on it, I'm just trusting that this person told me and they're right. That's too, I don't like those waters. So I was, in the beginning, I definitely was like, But for what it's worth, though, it's like what you consider active and what people consider active for me is really just like Tuesday. Like, it's Tuesday.
And that's
correct.
And that's the amazing thing about you too. I mean, again, like your bandwidth is, and I have a pretty, intense schedule and got a lot going on, but you are one of those people who really juggles a lot and really is able to have the bandwidth to struggle over here, create over here, etc. One of the things Tupac said, though, in Vibe magazine that I read, asshole. He talked about, he said when he was in jail, he was like, everybody thinks I'm over here making all this fire music. And, I'm writing. It's like all this inspiration. He said, when I'm in jail, like, I can't like create anything. Like he said, inspiration is dead when I'm in certain spaces. You know what I mean? When you're in these spaces of dealing with like so much death and trauma and debate and all this shit, like, is it hard to remain an artist or even to care about the art?
It's hard to care about myself. I'm so depressed. Like, I can't even, I'm in physical pain today. I'm so depressed. It is unbelievable. Like, I'm going to have to go on antidepressants, which I have never done before, because I can't handle it. I literally can't handle it. And I have to say it out loud in public spaces to hold myself accountable so that I will make sure to take the steps to go to the psychiatrist and get the shit, even if it's a small little milligram of help, because I can't handle it. I can't handle it. And I need to be productive for many reasons, but also because like I was sent to do that. I know that I was sent here and I'm supposed to do shit. And I can't do that if I can't even like, I'm literally functionally depressed at this point. And I know that because I will think, oh, when I'm done doing the work that I have to do to like pay my bills and, to serve my audience, et cetera, I'll be like, oh, so I have some free time and I can paint and I can do X, Y, Z. And that's not what happens. I don't have anything. I think every time I think, okay, when I'm done being busy, I'll have free time to do things. And my body is like,
yeah,
we're gonna cocoon. And, I was telling you the other day that I just feel like I'm on this like boat in the ocean, like trying to just maintain, because I have to preserve myself in order to get to the other side to be able to do those things. And sometimes what happens is when we get in these depressive spaces, our emotions are so empowering, are so powerful that we make decisions that aren't in our best interest, right? Or we like let things fall away that we needed to somehow protect, or whatever. Like our consciousness becomes so overpowered with all the negative. And then when we finally, if we're able to get to the other side, we have to do so much cleanup, right? Or we're left with the scraps of it. And I'm conscious enough to know that I'm not all the way there yet, but I see it. And I'm like, okay, so like you need to manage. So like, am I creating art right now? I mean, I'm trying, but I don't have an imagination. My imagination is like gone. So every night I draw. Every night I try to draw for like at least an hour. I don't even need to play music or anything. It's just silence. And I just draw. Sometimes I try and get up in the morning and go in the sauna, flex, and draw. And like, I'm trying to do things. I know this may be dumb, but it's like I'm trying to do things like I'll like look at an art book before I go to bed instead of Instagram, so that like my brain is like dancing on colors and imaginative things, right? Or like I'm trying to just watch. Right now I'm watching like Richard Attenborough's Planet in Color, right? Like I'm just trying to watch shit. I watched like Kubo and the Two Strings the other night. Like I'm just watching like animated shit. I'm trying to get like my imagination back. You look so troubled because you're like, oh, she's serious. Yes. Cry for help. Yes, I'm serious. It's bad. I'm in
like,
literal physical pain like, as we speak.
And this is where my brain leaves like host mode, journalist mode, YouTube mode, and I'm just like your friend mode. And I'm just like, what
I could cry right now. I'm just not. But I could cry right now. Like I'm in a terrible state.
I mean,
and so many of us are. We just are.
I was going to say, that's important to know.
Because at a certain point, it was one thing to just manage myself in the world. It's a whole other thing to really get a full grasp of the world. And I think it's unnatural to to bring up the black hole again. I feel like on October 7th, I like went through a black hole to like a whole universe of knowledge of whackness that I just like didn't know. And I haven't been able, I've been trying, but I just haven't been able to like adjust to all that I know now. And then also my own shit. It's just too much. I can't manage it. I cannot manage it. I'm forcing myself to go to a concert tonight. I don't know that I'll make it. I don't want to.
I'm going to make you go just because you need to go outside. I'm going to be texting you like, nigga, did you leave yet?
I'm going to be by myself, which normally I wouldn't trip about. I normally wouldn't trip about being by myself. I love being by myself, but I really just want to go in my bed. Someone in here said balance. There's no such thing as balance. Because life doesn't come at you in equal amounts and you're not able to like divvy it up. There's harmony. And so that's the effort I'm trying to, that's where my head is at. Like, where do I find the harmony, right? Where do I find the harmony in rest, but in work, but in joy, and in joy? Where do I find the harmony in healing, in therapy, in medicine, in, like working out in a way that doesn't fucking stress me out. And I mean, I tried to go to the movies yesterday to cheer myself up and I got a flat tire on the way to the fucking movies. I was like, what fucking episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm am I in? So I got a flat tire on the way to the fucking movies.
That is wild and crazy, and only you. That is some Larry Davis shit.
Just like, well, fuck y'all. I'm going home. So I went home. I lost the money for the movie. Fandango was like, sorry. So I went home, and I was just like, so today I went and took my car in. By the way, got a flat tire like maybe a month ago. Dude was like, really? Yes, I was like, talk to the LA streets. And I ended up walking home. I walked home from the dealer.
Wow.
Walked home. He was like, are you sure? Yes.
How long a walk was that? I got to ask, how long a walk was that?
Half hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to need
a
you
half hour walk when you're like, a half hour walk when you're like, I'm going for a walk is different than when you're like, you know what?
Right.
That's a different energy than like,
it is.
I'm going to work out. I'm walking. I'm wearing a shirt that says Calabasas, and I genuinely feel like this is the only reason why no one stopped me.
Probably was.
Because I'm
It
just
probably
walking.
was.
I've got no purse. I'm just walking in Calabasas, and I'm also the kind of person that never looks like they're struggling.
You managed to always, like, if I judged your life based on your Instagram, your lives, your tweets, your performances, I would think your life was always amazing. And when we check in, and probably the same thing to some extent with me, you know, because you'll check in and I'm like, nigga, I'm gonna die, you know, and it might not be what I write.
But then at night I'll see you like, hey, it's Marc Lamont Hill. We're gonna agree. That like when Twitch, rest in peace. When Twitch took his life, people were like, but he was just dancing in a video yesterday. And it's like, yes, because the smile is a part of the choreo. I will always tell people, I came on the reel. I was having a literal nervous breakdown. I came on the reel that morning. This is our time. And I cried all the way to the desk. And I'm sure if you watch it, you can see me like get it together. And I have 3 cornrows. And that's when niggas should have called me. Why do you have 3 cornrows? What's going on with you? 3 cornrows is just that's just a very like prison tattoo level of what is the fuck? And I was in the throes of a literal nervous breakdown, and I'm sure I've had others, but that was the first time I was able to name it and be like, oh. But again, you know, like I still did the show.
Right. And I remember when you were doing the show. I remember when you were thinking about doing the show. I remember when you were excited about doing the show. And then I remember when you started doing the show. And I remember how you felt about doing the show. And it never, your journey through that process, you never wavered on camera. There was no way. I could chart it based on our texts. I could chart it based on our conversation. I couldn't chart it based on how you looked on camera. I mean, that is a gift, because there's other people that look miserable when they're miserable. They make other people feel miserable when they're miserable. You know, that ain't you.
No, I mean, and then you're like I saw someone just say, like, you know, please mention that Mansour Schumann has been missing for 10 days. That's another one. I'm sure that let me tell you something. Mansour and I did a live from his tent in Khessa. And you would swear that he was poolside.
Right.
And it fucks with you, because I know that in his fortitude, I got tricked into thinking he was safe.
Yeah.
And now he's missing for 10 days. And I'm, you know, so I'm like, shit. If that can be what happens with someone who we know for sure is literally in the middle of a fucking genocidal siege, then
right.
Why would people think anything of me in Calabasas?
Right, with a sauna. Yeah, it's an important point, but that's why we got to look out for each other and we got to care for each other, because Hollywood in particular is filled with miserable people who, despite being miserable and feeling miserable, still navigate the world. Now, some of them are terrible people who are also miserable, and I have less regard for how they're doing, although I want everybody to be okay. And then there are people who are just like trying to be okay. They're trying to survive. They're trying to eat. They're trying to get over addictions. They're trying to pay their bills, even though everybody thinks they're rich. You know, there's all those pieces too that a lot of people don't understand. I mean, during the writer's strike, I can't tell you how many people were struggling. I mean, in the actor's strike too, how many people were struggling, trying to pay bills, trying to sell their cribs, trying to borrow money from folk. Shit is, it's hard out here.
I mean, we're just in a time that is like very unique in its, I think that they will look back upon this as a depression in hindsight. I think in hindsight, this will end up being qualified as such, because it is touching it just in its, what's what I'm looking for? In its equal opportunity oppression. It's like, you know, when I see people at my alma mater at Columbia, white people being attacked with like cops holding them down with knees on their neck, you know, you start to really see like the crumble.
Yeah.
I'm sure in that moment that person was like, damn. Like that's why when you say like just back away, it's like honestly, I think being so close is kind of keeping me going. Purpose. There's purpose. Even like, you know, doing the radio show every day. It's like I have somewhere to be on a mic and like synthesize my thoughts. Like it is actually like keeping me from being in stasis. And
which is important.
And you know, I told you earlier that I got dropped by my publicist today. And it's not that it was about Palestine or anything. Like if that was the case, they didn't say anything to that degree. But at this point, I assume everything is related.
Yeah.
But it just again forced me to like think about like, and then my financial advisor called me and I was like, check this out. If you call me to give me bad news, just wait till Monday. Right. He was like, no, I'm calling to thank you. And I was like, because if you're calling me to tell me you don't make enough money for me to advise you anymore, I say, you know what? Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
That's that. Yeah. He's like, I had enough bad. Yo, there's somebody writing in that has a question. Now that you mentioned that, that's kind of going along the lines of what you're talking about now. LaFemme Nikita said, has she lost a lot from speaking out? How is the silence working in Hollywood?
You know, I think I've lost more than I know. Right? Because people don't, here's the thing I got to tell y'all, people don't tell you. It's rare that people will tell you. Like Marc's situation was a rare case. Most times people don't tell you. They just find a way to remove you or to ignore you.
Yep.
And that's that. And then you may learn later.
Right.
Right. I mean, so for instance, like last year I was blacklisted from comedy clubs, but I didn't know.
Why were you blacklisted from comedy clubs?
I was blacklisted from comedy clubs last year because in 2022, Live Nation, the promoter that I was working with at Live Nation, was mismanaging my tour and did not appreciate me addressing that. And even though it was done in a professional manner, he then decided that he would just cancel my tour. And this is before I had the radio show. So it was like, well, if you cancel my tour, I just have no money. Like I have no income. Like because as a comic, like you'll base your work for however many months, like on a tour, right? And you're like, these are my dates and you're booking around those dates. So you've already given up opportunities. Like you've already let things go because like you have these dates.
Tour. Yeah.
And you know, he took that out right from under my feet. And I ended up having to call in reinforcements. And it was literally Kevin Hart who made a call on my behalf and was like, nah, like this is my friend. You got to do right by her. So anyways, but no, and then the Improv in Chicago, which is really in Schaumburg, they had tried to take my shows and give them to Fluffy, the comedian. And then I was like,
Fluffy, the comedian?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I had already sold tickets though. And so I told my audience and they came hard with it and was like, nah, you're not gonna take her shows. And so both of those two things happened. And then I wasn't even trying to do shows at the top of the year. And then I found out later, but at the end of the year, when I was working with this guy who was trying to book shows, he finally revealed to me like, yeah, we haven't been able to book anything for you because you're blacklisted.
Wow. Even when Kevin Hart intervened to get with the Live Nation stuff, how much did that help? Did that take you off the blacklist or did that just allow you to recoup some money from that situation?
It just allowed me to get my shows back. Like they literally canceled my shows. And the problem with that is that like, if you cancel my shows, I have guarantees for shows. So for those shows, there's like, there's a certain amount of money they have to pay me, even if I only sell one ticket. That's the contract, right? So like we're signing this contract and they decided that they felt my tour wasn't selling, but I had other dates that weren't Live Nation and those dates were selling.
Got you. It's an odd coincidence. And so they decided to place you with the guy that looks like the after picture from. Anyway, you know what? I'm not going to do that.
But anyways, I say all that to say though that like that's what happens when like I didn't even know that those conversations were happening behind my back. So people cancel you or people will blacklist you, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you don't even know. It's just done in a group chat, right? Like it's done in a meeting, and you're over here minding your business. And then when you pivot to come back to this thing, the thing doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Right. And so with the Palestine stuff, so it sounds like so far no one has said to you, we're not rocking with you because of Palestine.
One person has. I had an agent who was like, you know, this is like really straining. But then the other agent at that agency dropped me. And then my other agency dropped me. They said I was on a list.
Wow. What kind of I'm just
it wasn't Schindler's List.
Right.
But it was a list.
What kind of list?
They literally were just like, you know, we just have a list of people that we have to let go.
Wow. No reason, just
nope.
Just we can't rock with you. Do you
go ahead?
No, I was going to say, do you get the sense that other people in Hollywood who have spoke? I guess there aren't that many people who spoke. Like you said, it ain't that much of a line. So I guess the silencing is working because you're like it's almost like they're making you the example. And this is what happened with Colin Kaepernick. Lots of people kneel now, but they still won't let Kaepernick back in because they want to make an example. It's like, no, we want you to understand that if you don't do it,
I'm big enough to be an example. I mean, I think Susan Sarandon and like them dropping her from, I think she was at WME maybe. Like that's fucking bonkers, right? Like get out of here. But you know, I think on a
she was dropped by UTA. She got dropped by UTA. Yep.
UTA. So I think ultimately though, one of the things that I will say is that I had started feeling at least 2 years ago that there was something pulling me out of this industry anyway. And it's like, it feels like the universe, God, Dumbledore, Allah, whoever is like taking me in another direction. And it's just, you know, it's jarring because I've been in this since I was 8. But it doesn't feel wrong. It just feels jarring. And also like, I still need to maintain my bills. Like I still need to maintain my purpose. And so creating those spaces, like I think for a lot of us, you feel like, well, my purpose is to be a performer. My purpose is to, you know, inform people. How do I do that if these places that are the gatekeepers to that won't let me? You know, and so then you have, you know, you try and figure out other ways around that. But it definitely is, I think for me, it's like a thing that was inevitably going to happen. It's just kind of trippy that it is happening attached to such a heinous situation.
I remember when I worked at CNN, I always told people, you know, they're like, are you afraid to like say certain things on air? And I was like, no, I mean, I took the job knowing that someday I'm going to get fired from it, right? Like at some point, I'm going to say something that's there's no way I can tell the truth and do the work in the world that I want to do and be who I want to be and keep this job for long. So if I go in with that expectation, it manages my fear, my anxiety, my stress, etc. With you in Hollywood, you're a truth teller and you're courageous and you don't allow people to exploit you or abuse you or misuse you. And so at some point, like politics aside, just as a woman, a Black woman saying you're not going to shit on me. Right. Right. At some point, they like, man, fuck her. She too hard. We'll get somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, I still have my friends, you know, I mean, I have people, you know, that I can call and be like, hey, like, keep me in mind. I need to make this much money this year to keep my health insurance.
Right. And they will look out. I mean, you're not like persona non grata in Hollywood. Right.
No, I'm not even important enough to be that.
I mean,
but okay. So for instance, like I always do game shows, but the game shows are all run by a lot of Jewish folks. And I don't know who of them are Zionist or not.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if I don't get the calls this year to do game shows, even though they have consistently told me you are one of the best like celebrity guests. because you actually care. You actually learn how to play the game. You want people to win. Like, you give us sound bites, like all the things.
Right. You do all the things.
Would you say?
I said, like, you do all the things. Like, you're actually the perfect guest.
Whether it's 25 words or less or Pictionary. I mean, I'm probably not going to come back to Pictionary just because when I saw Jerry O'Connell share a picture of, one of the hostages, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And I said, you white people always eventually show your ass.
Whole lot of them do.
So I'm sure I'm not going back to Pictionary, right? And then you have like, I just did Celebrity Jeopardy, but I say all that to say though that like that's what I mean in terms of like no one's calling me to be like, we're not bringing you back because you're pro-Palestine.
Right. But
we're like, get called back.
And they don't have to explain why you're not on something. Whereas if like we didn't see Denzel Washington for 5 years after he spoke about Palestine, it would be like, something happened, right? Yes. And I think that's how they disappear most of us, right? Like the only reason, to your point, I got screwed over at CNN so publicly was because I was at the UN. If I hadn't given that UN speech, they would have just not renewed my contract. And then I might have not got another contract that's MSNBC, and everybody would have just said, just kind of stay away from. And no one would have known why. And it would just been like, oh, you're old product. We just don't want you anymore. There's a younger, smarter, whatever person with better hairline than you, right? And who does the same work.
To it.
And I wouldn't have known anything. So, that's how they do it in Hollywood a lot of times. And they'll make you feel like it's your ego or like you're imagining something when suddenly you're not getting the call anymore, or that you're crazy, And so it's super.
What's fucked up though is that like I don't know, if I'm being honest, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, even though you're like fuck them, your ego is like,
oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah.
You don't get to break up. Why break up with you?
Exactly. You want to not be. You want to say no. You want to be the one doing the rejecting it, and it's hard. But I think sometimes people walk away from the business, because they don't want to, so that they can say they left on their own terms, even when they're not ready to go. I don't think that's you. I think you could walk away from this. You like Rasheed Wallace. Like Rasheed Wallace was one of them NBA players that he wouldn't just get a tech. He'd be like, fuck y'all, fuck you, and walk off the court and leave and seem perfectly comfortable with it. It wasn't a show. You know what I mean? It wasn't a show. He genuinely was like, you'll walk away from this thing and do something else. And whatever the next thing you do will be just as dope. So there's no, I'm not worried about it for you.
Good, because I am.
You ain't got nothing to worry about, man. You ain't got shit to worry about. You just got to figure out what the next thing is. Although you're not done with this. You got more performances, you got more comedy specials.
It's true. I mean, I'll be in Dallas on February 25th.
Like a pro.
No, it's true. I mean, I am not done with this. I mean, even the other version that you're talking about is still. It still involves me performing. I mean, it's just on my own terms and not like with the approval or the connection to a machine. And I mean, that's already happening. I mean, I think that's, so like in Amanda We Trust, like that was my documentary that we put out last year, but now we're also doing screenings that are essentially like, I don't want to call it a political forum. It's more so like a learning forum that we have in every city. And so we'll do one where we did two in Chicago, and I'm still doing comedy because I'm just a funny person. So even as we're doing trivia about like what the fuck is going on in the world, I'm still, I don't really exist without humor. Like I can't even talk about my own depression without like being funny. So it's still going to have that there. And then we have like people, instead of me answering the questions for the trivia, like it's the guests. And then like in Chicago it was really cool because you have like one person answer and then someone else will be like, can I add to that? And then they stand and then they add to that. And then someone else stands and they add to that. And then someone else is like, well, I have a question about that. And so now what we've created is community in the room. So like, it's like, that's a different synthesizing of using that comedy space than others.
Right.
You understand what I mean? So like it's like stuff like that I'm trying to do. So like
and that's what you've always done. I mean, Smart, Funny, and Black was a way of taking like class, you know, theaters, people, comedy, performance, game show, you know, all mushed into one, and you got people who I would never imagine on a stage having fun doing something totally different, out of character.
One person that,
I mean, for example, you had Princeton professors on stage one time, and it's like
Monty Perry and Eddie Glaude.
Eddie Glaude, like, you know, and we're used to her. She's a National Book Award winner. He's on MSNBC. They're super serious, super brilliant, super cool. But it's like now they're in this other zone, and it was so much fun. Particularly as a woman in Hollywood, there are so many levels and layers, right? You got to deal with the personal shit. You got to deal with the negotiation of business, getting paid less or fighting to not get paid less. You know, the ageism, all that shit. I get why somebody wouldn't want to stay. You know what I mean? I think selfishly though, like, this is why we want you to. That's why we need you not to leave. Because like,
I'm leaving.
I know, but I want you like
leaving. To be honest, I don't think I have to leave. I think that we're going to see a different. I think that what we're seeing with the rise of. Do you understand that Nancy Pelosi has gone so far to try to undermine the support of Palestine as to say that protesters are Russian bots? Like,
right.
That when I start seeing that level of nonsense, I know that impact is being made, because the straws, the reach that is attempting to happen is so like, let me just say whatever, right? I mean, like, you know, if we're going to compare things, like that nigga brought my name in because he don't got nothing to talk about. So he had to just like reach for something. So we're seeing extremes happen that I think that Hollywood is just going to be a byproduct of what is really happening in general, which is that there's an awakening happening. There's an awakening happening. It's not even going to be about me leaving Hollywood as much as Hollywood has left itself, and it will continue to, because people, the fans, I am a fan. We are leaving. Like, we are not wanting what they've been selling anymore. We're not, I don't think that y'all understand, like, people sit around in rooms trying to think of what y'all want to watch that are not connected to y'all at all. And so like, there's no more, and that was already on the decline. It's only going to get worse. Like, shit is not what it used to be. Cat Williams got more views on that interview than like anything else that's been put out like on actual television for like the past how many fucking years.
Yeah.
And that was just because he was being Cat Williams, right? I mean, he was just keeping it a buck, and everyone was, but I think that a few years ago, people would have been like, oh, he's lying, and dismissed it in a whole other way.
Right.
But we're in a different cycle. So I just think, you know, when I see people like Kev on stage winning, you know, I'm like really happy to see that, because I know that someone who's like really committed to like his values, committed to his work, committed to like his vision of his creativity. And like, he's winning because more of the world is turning towards people who will bet on themselves in that way. And they're turning away from these systems. So I don't think I'm going to have to leave Hollywood. I think that the system is going to, I don't think the system can sustain much longer in the way that it has. Ultimately, so many people who are perpetuating that system are Zionists. And they may not be able to continue to sustain the way they've been sustaining, because the world has woken up to say, we don't condone this. We don't condone this. This is not okay. And there's so many pieces that have to be in place for that to continue to stay. And I hope I'm alive to see, you know, the fall of systems that have been sustained. And these systems have not been in place a long time.
Yeah.
They haven't been in place a long time.
They feel like they've been, I mean, even Israel, right? Israel's younger than my dad, rest in peace. Younger than my mom, who's still alive. Like, they're like, but it feels like it's been around forever. Tel Aviv was created in the second decade of the 20th century, right? You know what I mean? And yet it feels like it's an ancient city. Like, empires fall, power blocks fall. The United States won't last forever. Israel won't last forever. The UK won't last forever. France won't last forever. Hollywood won't last forever.
That used to feel like something that was so like, apocalyptic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think, thank you, Tanisha. I don't think it's as apocalyptic as it once was. I think it's not apocalyptic as much as it's inevitable.
Right. Right.
Like I used to feel like it would fall, and it would, like, I'm very curious to know, like, what did Rome look like when it fell?
Right. And did everybody know it fell? That's the thing. Like,
that's what
yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because I think you're right. The apocalyptic idea that everything crumbles and, Rock Nation will crumble and, and everything.
Did you just say Rock Nation will crumble?
Yeah.
I know Tory Lanez is like, please.
Right. And in the brunch, they just announced the brunch got canceled. So it's like, yeah, they said there's no brunch this year.
But you see.
Tory Lane's dad might have been on to something, but again, it's like, is that how Rome kind of looks, right? Does it crumble piece by piece, And in the meantime, as it's crumbling, what can we do? We don't have to just stand there and watch it. We can do something else.
But I think we're doing something else right now. We weren't doing this before.
Yeah. We weren't
doing this before. There's 627 people here. Over the course of these last hour, there's been a myriad of people that have come in and out. Like, there's different, also, it's like we don't have church in the same way that we used to anymore. So people are finding other forms of safe spaces, etc.
Right.
And I just think that I think we are the transition era. And I think, I know, like, when we look at, like, even if you read the 100 Years War on Palestine, they talk about just like the transition from the Ottoman Empire to the British Empire, right? It's like, right. Ottoman Empire crumbled. It was popping, and then it
wasn't, right? It was popping for 400 years. It wasn't like it was right. And then
it wasn't. And then the transition, they're over here feeling like, okay, we got to figure out what it's like to be under British rule, not realizing, well, some people realize, like, yeah, but they're also sneaking in like this whole other group of people at the same time. Like, what's this about? And that was, and then it became too much. Yeah. And then, here we are. But I agree with Omega. Like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. We're watching the fall. I think what people are not maybe necessarily understanding, though, is that, like, just because something falls doesn't mean something better will be built in its place.
Yeah. And that's
there are people that want the current America to fall because they are wanting to build a terribler place,
right,
in place of it. And that might be does not want America to fall. Mike Johnson wants America to fall so that he can be at the helm of whatever Gilead they build in place of it.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? Ottoman fell, British come, Israel comes. For the Palestinians and the Jordanians were in between that. If I'm Palestinian, it's a slow decline.
And they're like, well, we're having meetings.
Right.
We're having meetings. We're showing up and saying we don't think this is okay.
Right.
It's not even like they were like sitting around like, oh yeah, it's fine. And then, oh my God, no, like they were participatory in saying, no, we're not okay with this in like very clear fashions. Yeah. There were factions that had other plans. So it's not even like you are passive to your own despair, like it and I don't think I think that there's a lot of that happening in America, but I think there's a lot of us who aren't being passive and we're loudly like, hey, this is whack. Now when it comes to voting, I gotta tell you, at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I took a lot of heat for voting green in 2016. And in 2020, I was like, look, the world is upside down. People are dying of COVID. And I feel like if I vote in a way that will make Donald Trump president again, more people are going to die than if I don't do this. And so for me, it was a very concrete choice of like, more people are going to die. Mm-hmm. And I still think that's probably the case. But I also understand why when my 20-year-old daughter or my 23-year-old daughter call me and say, I can't pull the lever. How do I pull the lever? Or their friends say, how do I pull the lever for somebody who's blowing up the Middle East or enabling it to be blown up.
I thought they were asking you literally, how do I pull the lever? Because the kids don't be knowing how to work things.
That's true. Fortunately, you just push the buttons now, but they definitely would not know how to work. They absolutely would not know how to work a voting lever. But it's crazy because like that's the challenge, right? Is that like all these Arabs in Michigan that are like, Joe Biden, don't even show up because you ain't shit you could tell us that's gonna make us vote for you. Don't even waste the campaign stop. You know, I get it. These young people that are out in the streets right now marching for a ceasefire, and Joe Biden won't even utter a mumbling word. Like, I get it. And so they see Cornel West saying the right shit. They hear Trump saying nothing or crazy shit. They hear Biden's, you know, whatever, right? And they're like, all right, none of these options are exactly. I don't think Cornel can win, they're saying, but he's saying our stuff, and maybe we should vote this way. They're saying Joe Biden is the safe choice, but the world don't look very safe right now. And we know Donald Trump is a monster. So what do we do? And in that, against the backdrop of that, I just don't know. And so when Rip After Right says what issues will make them care, I think we know the issues that make them care. I just think that the politicians ain't responding to them.
Correct.
Man, anyway.
It's not, you know, like it's very, we don't believe you. You need more people.
Right.
Like when I see Kamala in 7 different instances say, we love Gen Z. I love Gen Z. I love Gen Z. I'm like, are you AI? Why are you talking like that? That's how a robot would talk if it was trying to pretend it was a human.
Who? Where?
Kamala Harris.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were in the chat. Yes. Yeah.
No, I feel like she's AI because she repeats herself every time like it's the first time. And it feels like how a robot would talk.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I am very, I mean, I didn't have an expectation that Kamala Harris would do anything more than different than what she's doing, but it's still frustrating and a little disappointing to hear in a certain kind of way. And I'm out of options. I'm not out of hope, but I'm definitely don't have a lot of optimism. I don't think this ends well in the short term. I think it gets uglier and more divided. And it's scary as hell. And I've been a Green Party member for 20 years, and I'm not even optimistic about what we're doing right now.
Who is the Green Party candidate?
Jill's running again.
Jill Stein?
Yeah, Jill Stein's running again. And, you know, I don't think that was the right choice. And I love Jill. I know Jill. I have nothing but respect for her vision and her politics, but I just don't think that was the move right now. And I think they were going to move out of the way and let Cornel do it. But then there's some internal politics with that, you know, Cornel wanted to be a little more free. You know, I've talked to everybody involved. Cornel wanted to be a little more free. And for them, it was more important to build the party and say, like, look, we ain't going to be president, right? So we need to be building the party and doing internal party labor and being part of a kind of a movement that's party centered as opposed to candidate centered. You know,
interesting. Like, but that to me is not reading the room. Like, this is the time where no, parties are clearly not the move. It's candidates that are the problem. So present a candidate that people will get behind, and that is representative of your party in a different way than these parties, because these parties are just like, whatever, take who we give you, but vote for our party.
Right.
And it's you know, it's not really it doesn't feel like for a lot of people like a really thought out thing. I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna do. People keep asking me, grocery store, Instagram, airplane. Amanda, who do I vote for?
If the election were right now, I don't think if it were right now at this moment, I don't think I would vote for president. I think I would leave that line blank. If gun to my head, I think I would pull Cornel West lever for president. Gun to my head. But you know, I don't walk when I pull Green Party before, I always felt good about my choice. I just feel like the Green Party is a strong coalition, maybe the best party option we have, but we're also stuck behind in 15 years ago. We're still not where we need to be. So it's frustrating across the board. And what time is the concert? How long before you leave out for that concert?
I'm going to see so many people because it's Grammy weekend.
Good. Normally I'd say that sucks, but I want you outside. I want you engaging people. I want you to be away from out of the house for a minute?
I'm wearing a sensible shoe.
Deal. Since you go out, but you wear sensible shoes, that is a deal. That is a deal. Yo, everybody, if you love Amanda Seales, and you better love Amanda Seales, go to Patreon right now. Go to her Patreon /Amanda Seales and support. You know, get the membership, I guess it's called. You know, I don't know the right language, but do it right now.
Subscription.
You say what?
Subscription.
Thank you. Subscribe to Amanda Seales' Patreon. It's dope. She gives amazing content. She gives amazing ideas. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. She's brilliant. She's the dopest friend in the world. And she's a dork when she makes faces like that. So you get all the things. Look, people are already saying done for Patreon. People are already saying, yep. People.
Wow.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
So make sure y'all do it. Make sure y'all staying in. And Amanda, I'll talk to you soon.